Hola,
Hola,
¿cómo
¿cómo
estamos?
estamos?
¿Cómo
¿Cómo
andamos?
andamos?
Bienvenidos a...
Spanglish Confessions.
Y el día de hoy tenemos a special guest que se llama...
Arlene.
Y Arlene is our special guest because today's topic is childhood. And she's actually from my childhood. So we thought it would be a good idea to have her join us.
So, how is she from your childhood?
Great question, Stephanie. Let me tell you. So she is from my childhood because she's...
One of my oldest sister's daughters, and she's technically my niece, right? But I mean, my mom and her mom were pregnant at the same time, so she was only like 2 months older than me. So 2 months and 2 days older than me. So technically, we grew up as sisters. So she's not really my niece. She technically is.
Oh, so she is your niece.
Long story short, yeah,
She's your niece, but she's your niece is older than you.
by 2 months and 2 days.
¿Cómo funciona la familia mexicana, verdad?
Yeah.
Anyways, so...
Blame our parents. So, like Very said, this episode is about our childhood and things that made us cringe, things that were awkward, things that embarrassed us growing up. And now as adults, we're like, why were we embarrassed? So we're kind of diving back into like what made us embarrassed about those things and how we felt at that moment, because I feel like a lot of those things shaped us and who we are now.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that.
But before we dive in, we actually want to start off with our confession of the day. Let's go ahead and get Arlene's confession.
All right, chicas. Well, I want to start off with my confession, which is I remember being in elementary school and I had to get a permission slip signed, and I forgot. So it was for a field trip. And I get there and then I start freaking out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna forge my mom's signature. So
Atrevida.
a little baddie. And so
How old were you?
I don't remember. It was elementary school, so I want to say it was maybe like 5th grade.
Oh,
Anyway, and I ended up forging her signature, and the teacher was like, "Hey, like I want to talk to you. This doesn't look like your mom's signature." And I kind of panicked, and I was like, "Well, actually, my mom."
Actually, let me tell you, it is her
Let me
signature.
tell you
My
what happened.
mom is from Mexico, so she can't read or write very well. She didn't get a chance to go to school, so and then she just like felt bad, and she said, "Oh, okay, yeah, no worries, of course." And yeah, was I ashamed in the moment? No, but now I do feel bad.
But why did you have to forge your mom's signature?
Because I forgot to get her signature so I could go to the freaking field trip.
This girl.
I said I am missing out. Not
you
today.
have to do what you gotta do, girl.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I bet that teacher felt so bad. And
She should though.
If she ever listens to this, we're sorry.
I mean, I feel like maybe she felt embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
She felt bad for sure because she looked at me like, "Oh," and then I was like, "Yeah, it was sad."
That is kind of sad for the teacher.
Yeah.
Because, girl, were you lying fully or?
Well, I did forget to sign it. Well, no, my mom didn't get to go. I mean, I guess finish school, but I took advantage of it. That was a very
So she knows how to sign.
kind of, but
She knows how to write.
sign signature. She doesn't really have to.
Oh,
Okay.
Not exposing my mother, but
So you literally you just lied
I should have played.
because of your mistakes.
Yeah.
That is a confession.
Very
That's a
very
good
hefty one for sure.
Sure.
thank you.
I'm glad you let it out.
You're welcome. I do apologize to that teacher.
Perfect. So that's Arlene's confession.
Thank you for.
I don't know. Did any of you guys ever do that? Like forge your parents' signatures?
I feel like it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to say a little bit more, I mean, I feel like our parents don't really learn how to use sign like in mano escrita, like cursive.
Mhm.
So I feel like they always have the like regular signature.
Yeah, like their names.
Yeah, like in en molde. ¿Cómo se llama?
Like yeah,
regular
just regular handwriting. Yeah, just regular handwriting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, mom had a signature, but she used to sign just her name, but then I taught her what a signature was, and she's like, "Oh," and then she just made a fancy one.
Mhm.
I was like, "Dang it, I can't forge it anymore."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, Stephanie, do you want to tell us your confession?
Well, mine's a little different, not all the way like that, but so when I was younger, I moved states. I was from California. I moved to Washington, so I didn't have any friends and stuff. And then I met this girl. She's still my friend to this day, actually. Chela, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Again, she knows now, but so we were in 2nd grade, I think, and we used to have Friday popcorn days. I don't know if you guys remember those. Yeah. And she, for some reason, had her wallet out, and I was like, te voy a chilanguear because I am from
You are chilanga.
my family is from LF. But I was like, damn, she left her wallet out, and I really wanted popcorn for some reason. Y mamá no me daba dinero because no me creía. Like she thought I just wanted money. It's like, girl, I just trying to buy popcorn.
Your mom said, "You big bag, you don't need it."
Literally, I was like, come on, girl. But my friend left her wallet there, and I don't remember what happened, but I just took the money. I took $1.50, and that was for Chela. So she wanted her to buy her popcorn, but I bought popcorn, and she's like, what happened to my money? I was like, girl, I don't know.
Wait, so le robaste su
Sí,
$1.50
sí,
y ella se quedó sin popcorn?
sí.
Did you share?
No,
Oh, Stephanie!
I know that was bad, but I did buy her popcorn later in the school year once we became friends.
Okay,
Because
wait, so she wasn't even your friend, she
she
was
was
a
trying to
random
be my
girl.
friend.
Oh.
And you said, esta amistad viene con un precio.
Sí.
Esta,
No es que
esta
no
amistad no es
sabía. I
gratis,
was
¿eh?
bad, and then I felt really bad. So then I like told my mom that I needed money because somebody lent me money. She's like, "You can't be doing that." But then I bought my friend popcorn, so I didn't feel bad anymore. And then I told her, and she's like, "I was wondering where my money went." But I was like, "Girl, who leaves their wallet outside? Like you left it
Hey,
on your desk."
it was a real life thing that she needed to realize real quick. Don't leave your wallet,
If
alguien te lo va a
anything,
robar.
I taught her a lesson.
Exactly.
I'm the victim here.
You did her a favor, okay?
I taught her a good lesson. But anyway, that's my confession, and we're still
Wow.
friends to this day, so everything is good. Don't be accusing me of nothing, and I don't take money anymore. Okay,
Okay.
I don't steal anymore.
You grew.
I grew up.
Okay, so those are some really good confessions. I don't have a confession for today. Mine's going to actually tie in a little bit more of like one of our topics. So going into more of embarrassment. That's where my confession will join in there, you know?
Okay, before we get started, I do have a disclaimer for this episode. There will be mentions of mental health, such as depression and anxiety. So if those are topics that you're not comfortable listening to, please skip ahead, or just skip the episode. And thank you for listening.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So let's go in with our first, well, our main topic, which is going to be embarrassing stories of our childhood, right?
Mhm.
So you want to get started with this one, Stephanie?
Yeah. So, a ver. So if we're gonna talk about embarrassment things that happened in our childhood, it's not that embarrassing things happen. It's things that I was embarrassed about growing
At the
up
time.
at the
Mhm.
time. This is like elementary school age, maybe in some middle school, but mostly elementary. I think like
Okay.
that's when it was started. Um, so I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really get to have friends over at my house. And it's not that I didn't want my friends over, but it's most like I didn't want friends over. Because when I was in California, like my friends were mostly white. So I didn't really have any Hispanic friends, and I was kind of embarrassed of like our family dynamics because it was so different from theirs. Like from what my friends would tell me, it's like, oh, I get home and mama has snacks for me, and it was like lemonade and cookies, and I was
Mhm.
like, yo cuando llego a la casa tengo que hacer qué hacer. Like I gotta go pick up my siblings, and I gotta go home, and I gotta cook.
Mhm.
I don't get that. Like, oh, my mom's waiting for me with like milk and cookies. Like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about? And then so I was just kind of embarrassed of like, oh, like we can hang out, but I have to do chores and stuff, and I just didn't want that. Or like, I don't know about you guys, but like my family would eat together, and for them it was like, oh no, we like eat, and then our dad gets home, and then we all eat together. But for me, it was like we had to wait till like my
Mhm.
dad got home. There was no like snacks or anything. I mean, there was, but not really. Te
Mhm.
echabas una quesadillita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Una sopa
Una
maruchan or
sopa
something.
maruchan o algo. And it was like, I remember one time one of my friends went over and I was like, oh, do you want a quesadilla? And they're like, sure. And then they started like putting the tortillas in the microwave. I was like, what are you doing? It was
En
el
el comal,
comal.
mija, en el comal.
Yeah. It's like, grab the comal, put your tortilla, put the queso, the jamon, and then, yeah. But they were just like, oh, that's so weird. I've never done that. But maybe to them it wasn't weird. Like, it was weird, but just different weird. And for me, it was embarrassing weird. Like, oh, I have to explain
Mhm.
what a comal is. And they're like, that's a skillet. And I was like, okay.
En Spanish se dice comal.
Es un comal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we heat our tortillas. But that's kind of like where that comes from, where it's like I was embarrassed to like just have friends over.
Okay.
Um,
So you didn't have friends over like growing up? You
not,
avoided that?
yeah, I avoided it.
Okay.
And even when I did end up having like my Hispanic friends and stuff, like we barely went over to my house. Like it was
Oh
not
wow.
something that I was comfortable with really,
Mhm.
because I mean I'm sure they understood, but it was like I held on to that from like when I was in California.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, similar to us too. Like, and you could jump in. So similar to us, it was kind of the opposite. We would always have our friends over to our house. Um, my mom was like a stay-at-home mom, so she would always like, we would get home from school and she would like if we had friends over or anything, like obviamente llegábamos y nos poníamos a hacer algo, lo que sea. But then we would have our friends over, and when we had our friends over, to them it was shocking coming over to our house because my mom was more traditional of like, you know, tenía ya limpio, tenía así como ya estaba haciendo de comer, and we also always ate as a family, and to them it was like nothing that was not common. So the first time that we had one of our neighbors over, she we're like, oh, pues qué comer, y pues obviamente le ofrecimos un taco y todo lo que sea estábamos comiendo, and to her she's like, oh, you guys eat as a family? And we're like, yeah, you don't? And she's like, no, like we get home and she'll have a snack and like a tuna sandwich. That was her thing, and we had never ate a tuna sandwich
Oh yeah.
yeah, until we started hanging out with her.
Plain.
Yeah, plain tuna
Yeah.
sandwich. I was like, oh,
Oh.
interesting. But anyway, so to us it was different because we were like, oh yeah, we always eat as a family because we did.
Mm-hmm.
We always ate as a family, and so for us it was like the same reason why I feel like our parents let us have friends over was because like to go over to other friends house we never did. I'm like, and it was mostly like we weren't able to sleep over anybody else's house, which I'm grateful for that now.
Yeah.
Because uno nunca sabe, right?
Exactly. I mean, I got told that all the
Yeah.
time. Like, I wasn't allowed at sleepovers either.
Yeah.
Because it was like, uno nunca sabe.
Sí, sí,
Oh,
sí.
sí, sí,
Uno
sí.
nunca sabe. Literally, uno nunca sabe. Like now that I look, and I feel like we would get mad, huh? Sometimes, like,
Oh yeah, for sure. We felt left out
yeah.
a lot.
So it's like the feeling of being left out that you guys were mostly
Because
mad
yeah,
about.
sometimes like if I know for like our friend at that time, like our neighbor friend, she would have like parties, huh? She would have like little parties and like sleepovers, and we weren't able to.
We lived right across the street.
Yeah, we live right across the street, and so we weren't able to because uno nunca sabe. And so for us, we kind of feel like we were left out in that. But now it's like, qué bueno que no. Because ya luego, then sí nos dejaba ir a su casa, like here and there. And it was just very different too, like the dynamic, like su mamá no estaba, su papá tampoco, so estaba ella solita. And for us to be solitos, like, not really, like,
Like, to me, like, I didn't get to, like, stay over at a friend's house till I was, like, out of high school. I think it was, like, our senior year, like, the next day I would graduated. I was like, oh, we're having, like, a little get-together at a friend's house and stuff. And my parents were like, pues ya estás grande,
Sí.
like, you can go. So I stayed the night. But that was, like, the first, like, sleepover, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had sleepovers, pero con mis primas
Mhm.
and stuff. And, like, my parents were
But
like,
not really with friends.
not really with friends,
Mhm.
porque uno nunca sabe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
So now as I'm older, I understand and I'm
Mhm.
thankful for it. But like, I feel like when we were young, it was like, ah,
Yeah, we would get mad because I feel like, yeah, we would get like upset, like, pero ¿por qué no? Like, no vamos a hacer nada malo, nomás vamos a ir, it's just a sleepover. But no, es que uno nunca sabe. You see so many stories, and thankfully, like, qué bueno que no nos dejaron,
Yeah.
So, por algo
Por
pasan las
algo.
cosas, por algo pasan las cosas. But yeah, that's that. A little bit of embarrassment on that. Let's go into, I don't know if you guys were ever embarrassed about packing lunches.
Ooh, lunchtime.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
And like for us, like my mom always nos hacía un burrito, ¿verdad?
Tortas.
Oh, sí,
Las
sí, sí.
tortas.
Unas tortas
No way.
para.
Tortas. Bitch. You were rich.
Dude, y luego te hacían tortas ahogadas. Did you guys ever have to
No,
deal
No,
with that?
no.
Ay, dude.
No, pero nuestras tortas, pues era obviamente de jamón y unas grandototas, pues sí. And then it was like, wrapped in the servilleta and then wrapped on papel aluminio. And so then when you're like lunchtime, sometimes we didn't have lunchtime in an actual cafeteria. We had it in our classroom. So it was worse because like you're like trying to be quiet y abriendo tu tortita. Layer by layer.
Everybody with their peanut butter jelly.
Yeah, everybody with their peanut butter jelly
We're like,
sandwich. Y
damn.
nosotros,
We got a whole meal. We're construction workers.
Yeah, and so for us, it's like, a veces le ponía frijolitos, ¿verdad? So we're like, va a oler a frijoles. Sí, va a oler a frijolitos aquí. Pero then, al principio sí nos daba como vergüencita. Pero ya luego no, porque se quedaban like, oh, what is that? And I don't know, mi mamá siempre nos dijo, no sean como comezolas, right? ¿Quieren una probadita?
I started saying they were subs.
They're Mexican subs.
They literally are.
You still get
So So we would be like, like, oh, do you want to buy it? Like, or whatever. And be like, oh my goodness, this is so good. So yeah, cuando finally then I was like, okay, I shouldn't be embarrassed about this. Like the heck,
Yeah.
Food is food.
Like, yeah, food is food. And now looking back, it's like, why would I be embarrassed? Like, I'm grateful. Like I had, a lunch.
Mhm. And it was like healthier than like the school lunches,
Mm-hmm.
and like I saw like kids bringing like their peanut butter and jelly and like their Oreos and Rice Krispies. I was jealous of their Rice Krispies,
Yeah,
but
because we never got
because we never
those.
got
My mom
those.
said que tenía mucha
No,
azúcar.
until
Yeah, me
later.
Yeah,
too.
until later we were older.
Yeah.
I did bag.
But no, elementary school is like that too, where it's like I estás, like unwrapping your stuff, like, but it's just like a cartel member. They're just like quietly sitting there,
Yeah.
and everybody, like when you make a noise, everybody like turns, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I can't afford
And
Ziplocs.
there's always
Yeah.
that one kid. There's always that one kid that's
That
like, "What
calls
is
you.
that?"
Yes, that
Oh,
calls you out. And y tú como
Bitch, not your food.
sí, and then y tú ahí toda avergonzada.
which
Like,
is like we shouldn't, because we should have been like,
mhm.
get it. It's like, are you hungry? Is that
You
peanut?
want some?
Is that tuna sandwich really gonna do it? No, it's not.
You wish it was you, huh?
It's because I don't get a snack after school.
Yeah, we got a whole meal. Tenemos que llegar llenas todavía para luego aguantar.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Not to call anybody out, if you love tuna sandwiches, that's on you.
But okay, there's some good tuna sandwiches, but the ones that actually have like some flavor in it, because
Yeah. Some
just the
people just eat him
plain,
plain. I was like,
no, tan siquiera a little salt and pepper or something.
yeah.
Pero si le agregan mayonesa, pues ya sabe rico.
Mayonesa con cremita.
Sí. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Big back problems. So, yeah. So I feel like that most of that embarrassment for lunches was definitely in elementary school.
Yeah.
Like I want to say like first to like third grade.
Yeah.
Because by fourth grade, I was like, if you're hungry,
Lunch is lunch.
Lunch is
like,
lunch,
I'm
girl.
grateful that I brought a lunch or
Yeah.
that I have a lunch,
It is delicious.
Yeah.
But like on that note about school, I don't know about you guys, but like my mom used to walk us sometimes, and like I would be like, I am not like go over there. Like
Mhm.
I'm trying to be with my friends,
Yeah.
But
What age was it for you? Like what grade? Like was it
Mm.
more like 5th grade? For me, I feel like it was 5th grade.
for me it was fourth grade, because by fifth grade I was walking by myself.
Oh, okay.
Because my mom was working early, so
Oh.
I think fourth grade was still like she like would try to kiss me like goodbye, and I was like,
Mhm.
girl, you're
Not
in front of my friends. But I've always been that way. I don't like
Uh-huh.
PDA.
Yeah.
But I was like, girl, don't. What are you doing?
Yeah. Get off of me.
People are gonna think you love me,
Care
Not-
about me.
not me
Uh-huh.
being loved.
Uh-huh.
So it was that, but or she would like, oh, que Dios te bendiga. It's
Uh-huh.
like, girl, I don't know how religious these people are,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's like something so stupid that I was
Mhm.
embarrassed about. But I don't know about you guys. Like,
No, yeah, I mean, I could kind of agree with that. My mom would always like up to 5th grade, right?
Mhm.
Up to 5th grade, she would we didn't live far, so either way, she would walk us from 2nd grade, which that's when we started at that school, but 2nd grade till 5th grade, like she would always walk us every morning to school y nos peinaba todas las mañanas. We would go
Lis-
so peinada, bien lisitas que te duele la cabeza. And you would be
Con el
like,
limón.
sí, y a veces no teníamos gel, so mi mamá le echaba limón. And you would be, girl, your hair was snatched.
I never had limon.
Oh no,
You
yeah,
had a
girl.
facelift,
You
though.
had a,
Really?
you were lifted. You were good.
I mean, it was like
and-
moco de gorila.
Moco de gorila.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. Pero a veces se nos acababa, so we
Mm.
had to improvise,
Mhm.
And the thing with that, though, so siempre nos peinaba every day. And she would take us to school walking, pues agarrados de la mano. Siempre nos agarraba de la mano, because you got to cross the streets.
Mhm.
Dangerous out there. And as soon as we would get there, ya nos despedíamos de ella y también le dábamos el beso en el cachete, ¿verdad? Nos
Ujú.
daba el beso del cachete para despedirnos y nos daba la bendición, like nos persinaba. Y para nosotros, can you agree? To you?
Yeah.
Like, at least for myself, like, me daba un poco de vergüenza because I'm like, ¿cómo se atreve a persinarme aquí enfrente de mis amigos? Nosotros, como dices tú, nosotros no sabemos what religion they are or whatever. So to me, I'd be like, okay, gracias. But now looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, why was I ashamed of that? Like, no, it's like, especially like una bendición and coming from your parents, I feel like I could look back and be like, qué mensa.
Mhm.
Qué mensa, porque me dio vergüenza eso. Because now it's like, I would love, and I love whenever my parents, like, I go out or if I'm going out on vacation or something, like, siempre me dan la bendición. And I ask for the bendición now. So it's like, wow, like, before te daba tanta vergüenza y tanta pena, pero ¿por qué?
Yeah, there's like no hay razón para que te dé
No.
vergüenza. There's nothing bad about it. If anything,
No,
like
if anything, it's a blessing.
literally
it's a
literal
blessing. Yeah.
que like que le importes tanto a tus papás y que quieren que estés bien, porque hay muchos que like, que los papás like, oh, pues ya se va a la escuela, and they don't care or anything, that's normal for a lot of families, but
Yeah.
like there's nothing shameful
Sorry,
about
go
it, nada de eso. So yeah, I mean, my family was never about dando bendiciones, but it was mostly like que Dios te bendiga. But not in front of my friends.
Yeah.
But now I don't care. Que
Yeah.
sí, que Dios me bendiga.
Yeah, and then we started kind of like comparing, and not that you're supposed to compare, ¿verdad? Pero like with that friend that we're talking about, our neighbor, like ella llegaba a su casa y estaba sola.
That's kind of
Sola.
sad.
Y sus papás pues estaban trabajando. We understand, situations are different and
Yeah, yeah.
everything. But she would sometimes be alone all day. And they would let her spend the night at our house all the time. Y como si nada, and she would just go and get some clothes and stay over at the house, and then literally she would just come in like if it was her house, which she felt safe in our house, which was great. And my mom was always like, no, like pobrecita, or like, oh
Sí.
no, like tell her she could stay and cositas así. But like looking back, it's like wow, like our parents were so present, or like at least my mom was very present, that like nos daba la bendición, nos hacía cositas y todo, and it's like looking back now, I was like wow,
Like very grateful for the
very
childhood,
grateful.
because
Yeah.
it's like, like at first I was like, oh, like my mom, like, oh, like why are you so involved? Like my friends get
Mhm.
to do this, my friends get to do that, like they go out all the time, and it's like, no, like, I remember one time in elementary school, like the first time I went over to like a friend's house, like my mom literally called my friend's mom
To make
and
sure
was
you were
to
there.
make sure I was there, and she's like, okay. And I remember being so embarrassed, like,
Mhm.
oiga, mi mamá quiere hablar con usted.
Mhm.
But looking back, it's like I get it,
Yeah.
because
She wanted
like,
to make sure that you were safe.
que estaba bien, like she wanted to know where I was,
Yeah.
what time I was going to be done, and so she could go pick me up. Because I mean, that's a parent. I feel like that's what you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
and get out en su ignorancia, or like en lo que sea, like
Mhm.
that's what they did.
Mhm.
Like,
And
you
you're grateful for it now.
yeah, now it's like I totally understand. Like if I ever have kids, like I don't know, like that's probably what I would do. Like I would
Yeah.
want to meet my kids' friends and
Making
probably,
sure like they're okay.
yeah. So like looking back at our childhood and all the restrictions like our parents put on us, and like the rules, and like not going out, and like not going over to people's places like all the time, like as a mom, like how has that changed your perspective on like your upbringing, and like do you still like think that those were good things, or are you like, oh, I don't want to be that like strict or stuff like that? Like how's your perspective on that?
I definitely feel like my childhood was very, or our childhood was very much strict, quote unquote. Um, very much like I wouldn't call it helicopter parenting, but they were very involved in our childhood, and that's something that I'm
Very traditional.
very, yeah, very grateful though for. That's something that I will take you know on, or I'll pass down to my child, which I do now. I try to be very on her,
Mhm.
but I definitely feel like in the moment when I was going through it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Like, I just want to be like my friends. But I feel like it protected us from a lot of things happening to us as children, especially when you're very little, you're very naive, and you don't really see. You think everybody's really nice. The world is rainbows and butterflies, but it's not. And I'll definitely be, on my daughter's butt about things that my parents did. And the sleepover thing for sure, zero possibility, never gonna happen. And something that my husband and I, which as well, my husband was raised also, Hispanic, but very different parenting for sure. And he was a guy, so it's very, and I feel like that's the thing too, with you even seeing your brother, he had so much more leniency than there was like 6 girls in the family, but yeah, so I think it is very important to pass that on to my child for sure.
It's like I feel like sometimes kids like nowadays have a lot of freedom, especially with social media and stuff, where it's like they don't need to be out to be talking to people,
They don't, yeah. The
Or
danger is in your home,
yeah, or like
unfortunately.
what was that thing called? Like where we would like chat with like strangers, like
Bro, Omegle.
Omegle.
Oh,
Oh my
Omegle.
god, like
What were we doing at how old were we? Like what were we doing
like
at
12,
12,
13,
13 years old talking to strangers?
online.
Y nada mensos, we would wait. We would wait para que se fueran a dormir y ahí, why?
That is crazy. So it's like now it's like how are we gonna protect our kids?
Mhm.
Like when technology is so advanced, like we don't even understand it.
My hot take on it is that some parents are just lazy with, watching over what their kid watches and what their kid is doing. They trust that their
They're not
child is a
actually
little
doing that.
angel
Mhm.
and that which as a parent, I would hate to think of my daughter doing anything beyond.
what you taught her, but it's like,
Yeah.
let's be
You never
realistic.
know.
We were not little angels.
So we were definitely not doing what our parents thought we were doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the realistic thing of being a parent.
Amen. I'm not a parent, but I agree. So thank you, Arlene, for sharing that. But yeah, I think technology is advancing, so future parents, be more careful with your kids. It doesn't matter if it gives them cringe or embarrassment. Like,
Mm-mm.
keep your child safe,
Yeah.
just how our parents kept us safe
Yeah.
all this time. Um, but I don't know. Going back into your childhood things as well, I feel like those were like mini traumas, or like, "Ay," but now growing up,
Mhm.
it's like you
You find
understand.
a reason. You see their reasoning.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I feel like part of it is like cuando te enojabas de eso or anything, or you would get sad about it. Like your parents were like, "Oh, like ponte a limpiar." Like I feel like Hispanic parents don't take our sadness or frustrations
Mhm.
like seriously. Like they take it
Yeah.
as like, "Oh, estás haciendo un berrinche," or you're
Or
not
you're
really
being
sad.
lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like not like jumping more into the future of like not elementary, but like moving forward to high school.
Mhm.
Probably like high school days for me were like more not junior year, but probably senior year. Obviously, I was a little stressed, because like graduation was coming up and this test and that test and girl, biology. Híjole, biology took me. I had to retake it 3 times.
Girl,
Not the class, the test. I don't even remember what it's
oh,
called.
I was
No,
like,
the test, but it was one of the tests that you had to pass y no sé qué.
yeah.
And y no la pasaba. No la pasé la primera ni a la segunda. Y la tercera, I took it an extra time too. So I took it at 2 different schools and on a Saturday. I had to go I went to the one at our school and then I went to another high school to retake it just in case if I didn't pass the third one, then I passed the fourth one, right? So I don't remember.
Was it a state test or
Yeah, it
something?
was a state test or something. And I
Dang,
couldn't
girl.
pass the biology one. Well, I did skip a lot of school too, so that didn't help.
Okay, no, pues sí.
But and so I was really stressed about that, but why? Because of my own mistakes. But I was able to graduate, so I ended up passing both of the last ones.
Hella studious.
Yeah, really studious. So don't skip school. And anyway, so obviously, like after graduation was coming up, so I was just feeling like a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and what am I going to do after graduation and everything. So I remember my mom and we would go to like the school and just walk the track after school, and it was just like our little exercise type of time. And I felt a little vulnerable at that time, and I wanted to share that with my mom, like, hey ma, me siento un poco últimamente me estoy sintiendo como un poco triste, and I was feeling like a little butterflies in my chest all the time, and like a little bit like of stress, but I didn't know what that feeling was, because it's anxiety. Okay.
So you were anxious, like
Yes.
everything going on was just getting to
Yes.
you.
And then I started feeling a little anxiety, and y les dije a mi mamá, le dije, como que últimamente me siento como muy, no sé, como muy preocupada, como y esto y el otro. And my mom at that time, like, my mom before used to be very like traditional, very strict, and like she wasn't as lovey-dovey as she is now. Like before she was, like my mom, like she was straight up like my mom. Now she's my homegirl, now we're friends. But, and so I feel like y me dice, ¿y qué sientes? Like, pues es que no sé lo que siento. Siento como que estoy preocupada, siento como nervios, no sé qué es lo que siento. Because I didn't know what anxiety was. And then she's like, ay, pues no pienses en eso. Excuse
¡Qué fácil, ¿no?
Gracias. Ya estoy aliviada. Ya.
Ya se me fue.
Gracias. Why did I talk to you sooner? But no, pues no andes. Yeah. Like, no andes pensando en eso. Ay, no. Y me decía también, ay, pues no andes pensando en eso. Y ya así como en la casa, sometimes I would be like, feeling a little down, like, ay, mamá, no me siento bien, como que estoy un poco triste. Ponte a limpiar, se te quita. Mamá, ¿cómo se atreve a decirme esas cosas? Deme un abracito, por
Uno aquí
favor.
deprimida y
Sí.
todo. Dice, ponte a limpiar.
Ay,
Los,
no,
tristes
ya,
los
ya no
trastes
estoy
están
triste.
tristes también, que no los lavas.
But I don't know if you guys could relate to that, but like, like, can you relate?
Of course, like, I know, like, a veces le decía a mamá, like, ay, no sé qué tengo, because, like, I would get sad for no reason. I didn't know
Yeah.
what it was. I was like, why am I so sad? Like, it's a sunny
Mhm.
day outside. I should be happy.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, sad. And one time I told my mom too. She's like, ay, pues los trastes están tristes porque no los has lavado. Girl, what if I just disappeared and ran away? What if I was sad?
I was that sad that I had to do that.
Yeah, what if I was so sad that I ran away? Are you traumatized? Like, I feel like,
Give us your thought. Like,
yeah, because
how was your experience with like when you were feeling sad or emotional, or how did that
yeah.
affect you? We really want to know.
To this day, I sometimes like get sad or something or feel any type of emotion, and I'm like, I ignore it. I subconsciously ignore it because as a child, I was told, "What you mad for? What you sad for?" Like there was, if my parents saw me in any sort of distress, they would look at the physical aspect of my life. Like, you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table. What you complaining about? Like you're fine. Like once you get a job, you can start complaining. Even then, I wasn't allowed to complain. But but yeah, definitely dragged along to my adulthood now.
I feel like for them, it's like, there's no time to be sad. There's no time to be anxious. There's no time to be depressed because as long as you have a roof over your head and food to eat, like, you're fine. If
¿De
it,
qué reniegas?
Sorry to cut you.
no,
And to be fair, yeah, that's very true. And I also do see, like, now I do give them more grace, I guess, because I do see why that mindset wasn't in place, due to the fact that they came from Mexico, from literally having physically nothing, like no home, no. Well, they had a home, right? They weren't fucking, but they were struggling now, yeah. And so, they come over here to give us a better life, and in a way, I felt ungrateful for even, feeling anything. I feel like, well, what am I complaining about if, my poor mother has to work like 2, 3 jobs to, give me food, or why should I feel? And that's where I was like, well, damn, like, why do I feel this way then? When in reality, I was allowed to feel those feelings for any small thing or whatever. You're allowed to feel that, even if you're told why.
yeah, I feel like we weren't taught how to like process those feelings. Instead, we were taught to like ignore them,
Suppress your feelings.
suppress your feelings. And now it's like, as an adult, it's like you have to learn how to process those instead of like ignoring them. Because I don't know for you guys, but for me, like, builds up.
Yeah.
And
And
then
you finally lash out.
and you lash out
Yeah.
at like the stupidest things,
Mhm.
which is like so unfair to whoever has to deal with you
Mhm.
at that moment, or husbands or moms or whoever.
Mhm. And a little bit too, now that I realize and I could acknowledge, and I actually feel like I notice the difference too, is that our body goes through a lot of emotions. Like our body goes through a lot of change that affects our emotions.
Mhm.
And then growing up, and then you're kind of with that mentality of like, oh, you can't feel that way, or you can't process that way. ¿Pa qué estás llorando? Ay, yo soy bien chillona.
Mm.
Ay, yo soy bien chillona. I'm
You're like, yeah,
emotional.
she is.
I'm very
Lying.
emotional.
But yeah.
Yeah, like I'm very emotional. Like soy bien regañona, enojona, and everything, but I'm really chillona too. So, and now, like, like sometimes, like, we're not having a good day, or like, it's that time of Mother Nature too that comes into play,
Oh yeah.
and it's like growing up, it's like you would feel, I don't know about you guys, but you would feel like, why am I feeling this way? It's not you, it's whatever's going on in you,
Yeah.
that it's like, but we were never taught that, like, it's okay that sometimes te vas a sentir así o lo que sea, but it's not you. And then sometimes it's like you feel like you're kind of crazy.
You right?
You know?
Yeah, because I feel like our moms were more like, "Oh, this is gonna happen to your body,"
And that's
like,
it.
and that's it. Like,
There
it
was
was the
nothing else.
physical aspect, but like nobody told you like about the
The emotion.
emotional. And it wasn't until like maybe high school where like teachers, like my health teacher
Yeah.
was very like, she was a really good teacher, by the way. But like she would like explain like, oh, like when you get your time of the month, like you're gonna feel like this, and because of this and stuff. And it's like, it made sense. Like, I was like, oh, so I'm not a weak bitch. It's just my period.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's just the hormonal changes. And it's like,
Yeah.
but like, I don't feel like our moms even knew that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they didn't understand that. They were just like,
And yeah, because I feel like how I mentioned, like, before, my mom used to be just like straight up, like, my mom, but like now, how I said, she's my friend, and we have such a great relationship now, where it's like maybe about to or whatever that time of the month, and I'll be like, I am feeling like this, or ay, ama, estoy tan enojada, pero no sé por qué. Quiero chillar, and now she'll be like, pues chilla. Gracias por darme permiso para chillar, because that's what I wanted, but, or like cositas así, de que I feel like now it's more like a relationship where nos comunicamos un poquito más, where it's like, I feel like a little apoyada, with like that I'm not crazy about it.
I do have something to add on to that though. As a parent, I find myself sometimes even like doing that with my own child, where she starts crying and I just panic and I'm like, don't cry. Like I don't want to see her in distress, right?
Mhm.
And I think that just comes naturally as a parent. Sometimes it's easier to just like fix the problem right away, when in reality like there's like an underneath issue. But I feel like maybe that was just like, her way of, like, right now she doesn't see you as like a kid anymore, right? She sees you as a friend. Like, you're older, you're more mature, you have, I feel like she has that more of a that trust, that connection. And I think back then she felt that like responsibility, where she was like, oh god, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like now too, like with my nieces and not only with my nieces, like with my nephews too. Sometimes if they're feeling like a little upset or they're frustrated or they're like sad or they're crying, it's like I try to be there as a comfort, like, oh, what's going on, or and it's like I don't try to push them as like tell me what's going on, because I feel like that's what happened to us before too, where it's like, pues por qué estás llorando?
With an
No,
attitude.
with an ¿pa qué lloras? And then you tell them why you're crying, and it's like, ¿y por eso lloras? Pues sí,
You know.
yeah. And so I try to like, not to expose my sisters, but some of my sisters be like, ¿y por eso lloras? Pues sí, por eso lloro, porque it's like it means something for you, and I try to be very like be tratar de ser como apoyar, or like be a person of comfort with my nieces and my nephews too, because if they're going through something, I want them to feel like, hey, let's talk to my tia Viri about it, or and I do, and I tell my nieces, or like, it's okay if you're feeling like that, like, am I not? And then they'll be like, oh, I'm not being crazy. No, you're not. It's okay.
To not be okay.
Yeah, it's okay not to be
Yes.
okay. Like, literally, like, it's yeah, and even with the boys,
Mhm.
because I feel like with the boys también,
Oh my god, the
ellos,
machismo.
yes, the machismo that goes into like into within, like, being a boy, that you can't cry or you can't do this porque you're a boy. Like, no, yes, you can have your feelings, okay? You could have your emotions, that you are able to process them. So I feel like it's different too, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah. And it's like, right, like growing up, like the boys, like my little cousins or my brother, it was like, aguántese, ¿eres macho? No.
uh-huh.
Pareces niña.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, what the heck? Like,
you're showing
every,
them that they can never cry.
yeah, like to be tough and suppress those emotions. And
Yeah.
then that's why we have men who are angry all the time
Yeah.
because they don't know how to process that. I mean,
Yeah.
at least we were allowed to show like
Mhm.
emotion, but then they'll be like, calmate.
Yeah.
But for them,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're
yeah, no
never
llores.
allowed to.
Which, sorry to cut
Well,
you off, which is so twisted, because they're saying that like you're a girl if you cry, if you show emotions, but we're not even allowed to
Yeah.
process or
Yeah.
to show those
yeah.
emotions. So it's like, I'm
It's
confused.
very
What's
yeah.
going on?
Mhm.
What can I
Yeah,
Like,
like
we're allowed to do it in private.
mhm.
do?
And I feel like boys are never allowed to.
Yeah.
Not even in private, where it's like, doesn't help anybody. And then we grow up and now we don't know what to do.
Yeah. And being like, not that we want to like compare, men to women or anything like that, pero también así como like boys, like that we're talking about like boys. And I feel like with us, at least I was with my mom, me decía oye calla,
Mhm.
oye calla, it's forever, because like I've always been a little bit more outspoken, and it was always more of like oye calla,
You
no
always
no,
had questions.
ajá,
You always had questions.
ajá. And but it was always like it was always like, oye calla, ay, no seas así, o no digas eso, no digas el otro. And it got to a point where I was finally like, maybe like about to graduate high school type of, like you're what, 16, 17,
Like
around that age,
17-ish, yeah.
and
Your brain's
you're
developing.
a character in that age especially. And so I would go through arguments or something, and I would have my mom in the back of my head like, "Oye, calla," and I'm like, "Fuck, like let me not say anything, let me shut up." But then it got to a point like, no, there comes a point that finally, "Oye, calla" doesn't do anything for you, and you got to defend yourself, and you do. And that's when I feel like I started feeling able to use more of my emotions and show my emotions and control my emotions.
Mhm.
So once I was able to like, finally get over the oye calla all the time, like I was able to be like, you know what? No, let me process what I want to say, and then I could speak, because I feel like that oye calla obviously just shuts you down, so you can't say anything. And then finally, when you say something, it's not the right thing,
Yeah.
because you were never taught about how to say it.
That's the unfortunate part of it too, is that, well, okay, so when you do come to terms with, okay, no, I'm gonna not keep the peace anymore, I'm gonna speak up, then you're like, you know what, ya la cagué
Hmm.
porque no dije lo que tenía que decir apropiadamente.
Hmm.
And especially I at least found myself in, situations where I didn't choose the right words, I guess, even with certain like people that I care about and I love when I got into any altercations with, because I wasn't taught how to properly have an argument, and I came off as, a really horrible person for the way I talk to certain people, right?
Bien malcriado, malcriada and stuff,
Yeah, but then again, like, it was just so much, again, like that built up emotion that you get from like holding it in and keeping the peace,
Mm-hmm.
but you're like, F this, and then you explode, and then you're like, yeah, la cagué.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel embarrassed. You feel really
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. You're like, oh gosh, that's the way I acted is not how I truly, wanted to come off. But
Yeah.
that's the really unfortunate part of
Mm-hmm.
not knowing.
And then yeah, and so now like looking back, I feel like that's a good thing to be like, okay, well maybe if I was able to process my feelings, I would have been able to no cagarla tanto
Or learn how to.
or learn how to be able to communicate an argument, right? So that's why I feel like it's important. Like now, I assume with your daughter, you're mindful of that and you want her to process her feelings.
Which is tough because I do catch myself a lot where I'm like, like the short temper, right, comes in where I'm like, ah, like I just want to be like, well, dude, like get it, because I was
Just
taught that way.
understand.
Just get it. And then
Not
I'm like,
hard.
and then I later I'm like, dude, why did I say that? And then I do that too. I do apologize to her when I mess up. I own up to my mistake and I tell her, hey, I shouldn't have been speaking to you that way. You deserve respect, and let me fix that. Because as a parent, it's normal to just wanna you get irritated, you get mad. It's normal. But as long as you apologize and you talk to them, even she's only 4, but kids are very smart. They're sponges. Like, whenever, even for example, not to throw my husband and I under the bus, but we get into an altercation, we're going to, also fix it in front of her if anything
For
is
sure,
said,
yeah.
so she knows, okay, when I mess up, I have to apologize, or this is how to fix a situation, or how to get myself out of, this misunderstanding with the person. And I think that's a very important thing that we were really not taught. We were never apologized for anything, which, again, we gave grace. I think I gave grace. I don't know about you, but as a parent, I myself, like, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I ain't never gonna give grace. I'm just kidding.
Not
I
me.
do, not me. I stay mine. No, but I feel like it's, yeah, you're right. Like that's a good mom right there.
Mhm.
That's like
Yeah,
you're a good
yeah, yeah,
mom.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like my mom never apologized, and it was more like her apology was like, "Vente a comer,
Yeah.
girl.
Yes.
I'm
After
crying in my room."
yeah, no, after especially after that cry that you're like it's like una buena chillada, Like my mom, I remember we were still living in California and we would get in fights, right? And because my mom would take care of us because she was a stay-at-home mom. Y nosotros nos peleábamos and then she would regañarnos. She's like, si siguen peleando, me voy a ir a poner a trabajar y a ver quién los va a andar cuidando. Girl, why would you tell me that? And I literally went up to our room in our closet and yo me escondí en el closet. Y yo estaba chille y chille y chille.
Oh,
Because and it was that chillada, cuando tiene los mocos escurriendo, las lagañas, todos. And you're like, that kind of cry? That cry hurts. And then she goes and she's like, ¿y tú por qué lloras? Make it worse. Y yo, I'm like, es que usted se va a ir a trabajar. ¿Y quién nos va a cuidar? And then she'd be like, es que no entienden. Entonces sí se va a ir a trabajar. And it's like, and now we talk about it and we laugh. But she's like, es que no entendían. And I was like, but eso me causó un poco de trauma. I was obviously constantly like scared of like, where is she going? And today is the day que se va a ir a trabajar. And today is the day que no va a regresar because we've been bad kids. But now we just kid around. But that's
I
trauma
know it
too.
is.
And
Like,
then she would be like, ya pues, no llores, no me voy a ir a trabajar, pero pongan atención. Háganme caso. Ya vénganse a
you
comer.
do, okay.
Okay. No tengo hambre, pero okay. Porque si no
No,
comías también te
I wish
regañaba.
my mom would threaten us with that, but she was always working, which I understand.
No.
I give grace for that. But for her, it was like, el día que yo me muera, se va a morir.
No.
Any minute. Oops.
Yes.
Any minute now.
Yeah.
And she's like, el día que yo me muera, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no quiero que se muera.
Sí,
Déjame.
sí.
And sometimes I would stay and like, I don't know, like think about it, and I started
Mhm.
crying because you imagine it.
Yes.
And then I've always been a warrior, so I was like,
Me
¿cómo le voy a
too.
hacer? ¿Cómo voy a llevar a mis hermanos a la escuela? Like,
Sí.
voy a tener que trabajar. Mi papá va a tener que.
You were already planning.
I was already planning everything.
Funny.
And this girl was just mad because I didn't wash the dishes or something.
Yeah, and I know like because when that was in California, right? But then we moved here, and mi mamá le gusta salirse, ¿verdad? Irse allá a caminar and whatever. And she didn't have a phone back then, so I'm like, and I remember one time we used to live by the cemetery, and then that little cemetery would take you to a trail to tienditas. And y ella se salió sola. So nosotros llegamos de la escuela y no estaba nadie. Y
Ya se fue a
dijimos,
trabajar.
ya se fue a trabajar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where is she? Y ya se oscureció. And at that time era como el tipo cuando se oscurece temprano. So it was probably like 4ish, maybe 5. It wasn't even that late. And no llegaba. Y yo bien preocupona, right? And I would tell my sisters like, es que todavía no llega mi mamá. Is she okay? Like I was thinking the worst. Y yo ya chillando. It's like, no, Viri, ahorita va a llegar, ahorita llega y no sé qué tanto. Y no llegaba. Ya finally llega, ¿verdad? And I was mad. Now I understand why your parents are mad cuando no llegas a la hora. Because I'd be like, ¿a dónde fue? Ah, pues me fui a caminar y llega con su bolsita de cosas que se fue a comprar, ¿verdad? Le digo, pero pues next time que se va a salir, avise, leave a note or
¿Se manda
something.
sola o qué?
¿Se manda sola o qué? And I'm like, oh my goodness, pero yo siempre bien preocupona, you know, that it's like, how dare you?
Like, there was this one time we were in elementary school again in California. We were like, what?
Oh, yeah. I think you're saying, yeah.
And well, again, she used to pick us up. She used to drop us off, walking to school. So she forgot to, or no, she was just late. Something happened. She didn't forget about us. She thought she forgot about us,
Yeah.
and we were like, okay, well, nobody's here. Okay, well, we gotta go to the office. So we go to the office, and this girl was like, oh my god, Arlene, my mom, like, she forgot about us, like something, right?
Or algo le pasó.
And I was like, yeah, we're fine, whatever. Point is, she shows up, but this girl was freaking the flip out. Like, she was freaking out, having like a whole moment. And she shows up, and she was very upset with my grandma. My grandma was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but she was laughing because she's like, "Dude, chill out. I'm right here." And this girl was like holding on to her, like, for dear life.
But that time though I didn't cry. And I remember really because my mom was late because estaba chismeando con una de sus amigas, su amiga Teresa. And yes,
You
yes.
were crying. Here, you weren't crying.
Don't expose me like that.
She
I
got
don't remember crying.
exposed.
No. Okay, I would cry. But I didn't cry that much that time
But you were freaking
because
out.
we had so Teresa was my mom's best friend. And Teresa had a son que se llama José, and he was also tarde porque las dos señoras estaban comadreando, so llegaron tarde. You remember?
Yeah.
And that time, like, I wasn't gonna cry in front of our friends like that because we would have little play dates.
Wait, so
you
it
know?
was the 3 of you
Yes,
waiting
the
there?
3 of us waiting out. So obviously
And he
you
was a
wait.
boy.
Yeah,
He was
you wait
terrifying.
outside, and then si no llegan por ti, pues te vas a la oficina. So we're like, okay, pues ya nos tocó ir a la oficina. Y yo ya preocupada, I was like, ¿qué le pasó a mi mamá? Somebody jumped her. Se fue, se la llevaron. Algo le pasó. She forgot about us. She doesn't want us no more. We're gonna stay here.
Se fue a
And my
trabajar.
head, yeah, my head
It
was
was
just
just, like,
spinning, like, and I was
spinning.
just like, wanting to cry. And Arlene knew, like, she knew I was gonna cry, and like she'd be like, it's okay, she's coming, like it's fine, she's coming. Yeah, she's never been super like preocupona. It's always been like vale madres. And y yo más así como, I can't breathe. Somebody give me a paper or
I swear,
something.
I remember you saying you wanted to throw up.
And yeah, I was like,
remember
yeah, I would get
She
so
went
nerviosa
to
to
the
the
bathroom.
point
You
to the
did.
point where like me iba a vomitar. Yeah. And so finally ya va llegando las dos señorcitas platicando, wiri wiri, como sin nada. Y yo, how dare you?
Y ella se,
Yo,
ay, se nos hizo
ay, es que se
tarde.
nos hizo tarde. Y yo enojada on the way home, así. How dare you forget about me? I'm your
Bien
daughter.
indignada.
Yeah. Hurry up, walk faster.
Then
We
when you
gotta
get
get
the teacher?
home. That's a story for another day.
Wait, I have a question. Like, the teachers didn't let you guys just walk home?
No,
No, it's because
girl.
we were still too little.
Yeah, this was like
Oh.
we were like maybe kindergarten, first grade.
No, I remember.
First grade. Maybe first
First
grade.
grade.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna be like, girls, why don't you just walk?
No, and
I
also it was a pretty.
know.
It was a long walk.
It was a long
It was
walk.
like 30
Sorry.
minutes.
Okay, that story was funny. Porque ¿para qué lloras?
Es que yo
It's like
estaba
you always wanted-
preocupada. To this day, I'm really preocupona.
It makes sense. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm more like with Arlene, where it's like, I'll eventually have to
Yeah,
walk
for
home,
sure.
you know, or
It's fine.
somebody's gonna pick me up eventually. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been like that, where it's like, las cosas se arreglan.
Mhm.
Todo tiene solución menos la muerte.
Pues sí,
But this girl
pero
thinks the muerte.
That's the problem. She jumped straight to it.
I'm gonna die.
yeah.
No, but so like looking back, like how do you guys feel like overcoming your cringiness and embarrassment, like how do you think those things shaped us now? Where it's like any of those things that you take into your adulthood and you're like, oh, like you mentioned earlier, like, oh, I give grace now, or like I understand, like
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
I feel like, yeah, definitely, like, now looking back and looking at, like, like the whole being embarrassed of certain things that we shouldn't have been embarrassed about at that time. Like, now, how I mentioned, like, I could look back and be like, wow, ¿por qué me dio vergüenza? Y al contrario, now I feel like I don't take those things for granted. Like, for example, la bendición, once again, because I feel like there's going to come a day that I'm not going to be able to get that bendición. And it's very sad not to get on the sad mood here, um, but like now it's like I could appreciate that and I don't take those things for granted anymore because I try to live in the present now with that and be grateful for everything, for all the little things. And yeah, so.
no, I have to agree. I feel like a lot of things that happened to me, like my childhood, that like I would say like little traumas, like
Mhm.
they're not really traumas because as an adult I can understand.
Mhm.
Like especially the whole like watching what your kids are doing online and stuff. Omigo,
What were we
what were
doing?
we doing or
Yeah.
chatting or like stuff like that, that's like as an adult I understand, like especially working, like our
Mhm.
parents had to work and like they took care of us the best way they could, and that was by feeding us
Mhm.
and making sure we were okay and had a roof over our heads and stuff like that. So I feel like as an adult I give a lot of grace and I
Mhm.
understand a lot of hardworking parents and our parents as
Mhm.
well, like I'm more forgiving. And I feel like I didn't learn that until I was like well into my adulthood, until I moved out, was like when I was like, dang, this thing is
Yeah.
stressful. And then imagine having kids on top of that. No wonder it beat my ass. No, I'm just kidding. They never beat. No, they did. But
Like the
I
ass
guess
beatings were well deserved.
yeah, the ass beatings. Yeah, the ass beatings were well deserved because my job was to take the fucking chicken out of the freezer, and I
Yes.
couldn't do that. I'd be mad too.
Yeah.
But like I said, more grace, understanding, and I probably take some of those lessons into when I become a parent.
Mhm.
But what about you, Harley?
Yeah, I agree with the whole grace situation because again, I used to beat myself up for like things of that I used to feel embarrassed about. But then again, I think I'm like, you know what? I was a kid. To be fair, kids are going to do dumb things. Kids are going to be kids, and we were kids, But to be fair, um, they did shape us. Those little, like the blessings, the
Embarrassment.
this embarrassments, shaped us to to shaped us into who we are now. And that's something that I definitely am going to pass on to my daughter. And I'm sure you guys, if you guys have children in the future, we'll pass it on to them. But for now, I mean, with each other probably.
Mhm.
It makes you think back about like all the times in your childhood, like the questions you could ask from your friends, like, "Oh, why are you eating that?"
Mhm.
Like
Culture-wise, it was.
cultural wise, it was like super different.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're
Hmm.
right. And I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
they're not embarrassed now.
Yeah, but like, yeah, because obviously we had different cultures, right? Like, there's different cultures in general, but our culture was very different to like then having to adapt to the culture here. So I feel like that being embarrassed about like, cositas así como que sí daba vergüenza, pero now looking back, it's like, no, it was part of our culture. And I feel like it's great. It's a good thing to embrace now
Hmm.
that I look back and I'm like, I'm not embarrassed about that or I shouldn't be ashamed of or anything like that. Al contrario, be orgullosa, ser un poco más orgullosa
Hmm.
sobre las cosas que trae nuestra cultura. So,
Hmm.
No, yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me, and I appreciate your words of wisdom, and I hope that you guys succeed in this podcast.
Oh, thank you. It was really nice having you. I'm so glad you were able to share your stories with us as well. And she'll be back in the future as well. So if you
Different
want more of
topics.
Arlene, let us know.
Ajá.
But yeah, she'll be back whether you want it or not.
Sí, aunque les guste o no les guste, tal vez regrese. Bueno, va a regresar.
Sí, va a
Sí, va a
regresar, ¿cómo
regresar.
no?
¿Les va a agarrar otro micrófono?
Sí, le vamos a agarrar otro
Para no,
micrófono.
para no tener que compartir. Es que espérense, lo ordenamos, pero no alcanzó a llegar a tiempo.
So,
Sí, sí.
pues ya está ordenado, pero no llegó a tiempo.
Para la próxima.
Entonces, para la próxima va a haber 3,
Sí, sí, sí.
hasta 4, 5.
Sí. Okay, guys. Well, that was it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are still super, super excited. And thank you, Arlene, for joining us on today's episode. We will catch you on the next episode, which will be talking a little bit more. Well, we'll be talking about
Jealousy.
and jealousy just in general. It could be in relationships, in friendships,
Mhm.
just in overall family as well. So we are super excited to go into that topic itself. So go ahead and please stay tuned for the next episode. But
But also follow us on Instagram at Spanglish_confessions. Find us there. We'll post clips, photos. You get to meet us a little bit more. And you can also DM us there on Instagram, letting us know your Spanglish confessions. We always say what our next topic is going to be. So if you have something that you want to share about that topic, we will share your confessions.
Mhm. So if you have anything under the topic of
Jealousy.
please feel free to share your story for next time. So, but thank you guys so much for joining us. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.